This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning, everybody. Afternoon, I should say. I'm used to mornings. Welcome to the Board of Commissioner meetings workshop for, we're going to say February 17th, 2022. It's 3:01. We're a little delayed just because, well, that's what happens when you get to the RH. We tend to be a little slower. So yeah, this morning, well, I won't say about it, it's myself. I'm just talking about high moments. So they already knew about. So this afternoon we have all three commissioners present. We have our staff from the organization. If you're just joining us and have never attended a workshop meeting before, this is an opportunity for the Board of Commissioners to get together, hear from staff on things that are in process. As a reminder, because some people may not know, no decisions or actions are taken at workshop meetings. This is just an opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions back and forth and for the staff to present upcoming thoughts, issues, and ideas that are going to be coming before the Board of Commissioners itself. So with that, it's pretty much open. I'm going to look towards the general manager.
All right.
And we'll begin.
So today's topic really is on rates, kind of a short and long-term planning, and hearing from the commissioners what kind of direction you want staff to go with this, and next step. Get us all on the same page sort of idea, and ask questions now, work stuff out. For the next step. Okay. So kind of just starting, I printed this out for you guys too, if you wanted in front of you. This is what staff was kind of thinking we think our guiding principles are when we start talking about race. But definitely want to hear from, the three of you to make sure we really are on the same page. And when we talk about a possible rate increase, that we are having these things in mind. So the first one was going to be maintaining a balance between our environmental protection and our affordability. So we know regulations are increasing, we're going to meet those, but what does that mean for our customers too? I could see us going, way in the other end, but I also don't want to be sacrificing anything environmental. All right, the second one was no reduction in the level of service. So that seems pretty easy. And then planning with the consideration of that city island that we have, kind of the same time frame horizons, and what does that mean when the city does take over, since we know that's happening. And then a general idea is we want fewer rate increases over time. It makes it hard, I think, for our customers if we're hitting them with a rate increase every year or whatever. But I mean, that's definitely one that can come from the commissioners, whether you want more often and smaller rate increases, or if you want larger chunks less often. But in general, we've tried to go for the fewer, larger. And then right now we're kind of in that retire debt and avoid taking on additional debt sort of mode. And I think that's kind of the goal, but as we go through, that's what you want. And then another one is also just protecting our low-income or fixed income vulnerable population. And that one also, with our new general permit, ecology is even requiring that to be one of our things we have to evaluate. So we'll look at that as well. Any other kind of thoughts, ideas on this part?
Solid.
Yeah, no, I think it really kind of encapsulates what we've always kind of tried to move forward as an organization.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's general, but it seems to work real well for us as far as, we're able to look at everything. So I know this is to help Commissioner Wright, that's just come into it, but you're pretty much on top of a lot of it because you understand some of the stuff, doing your homework prior. And as a ratepayer, you understand some of the things. So yeah, I mean, and I guess, part of it, these have been kind of some of the guiding principles. It's nice that I know this is, the general manager has put this together to kind of probably, it's always been out there. Maybe it hasn't been as
Yeah, this is great.
formalized as we're seeing it now, but it's good to see it that way because I think it kind of gives us, it's something that when we need to point and help the general public understand by educating a little bit and saying, hey, these are these are the issues and we can really point to them. I think that helps a lot of times when people really want to know why something went up or why we do what we do. So,
And we can come back once we come up with, hey, here's the 3 scenarios or whatever we want to consider. We can come back to this and say, okay, is it consistent with what we said at the front end?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like it. Yeah, good way to phrase it.
yeah.
All right. So in kind of preparing for this, we asked ourselves. Will decreasing debt service offset the personnel or material costs? So basically our O&M. The second question was kind of along the same lines, because we think that is a theory, probably, is the more debt we take off, the more we can make up. So the next one being, where do those two trends meet and how long is that sustainable for? And then we kind of get into the capital side with the eventual reduction of new connections, when will rates have to contribute to the capital cost? And then what would rates have to be to prevent having to take on more debt? So these are kind of the big picture crunching numbers to try and answer these questions.
And that first box is important because we as a board established a strategy of, we're going to place additional financial resources that we have in the books that was designated at the early set of building the plant to go to the plant. We reduced debt with those monies. We essentially are debt free by the time the city acquires the district in 2033. And at one point, the rates were made up of about 60%, I think, was going to debt service. So if that debt is coming down to 0, and our costs, our operational costs, people, material is going up, of course, with how everything is, that is so how well is that strategy of paying off the debt? Does it make it all up? Does it make it part up? That's a really good question, and it puts into kind of real terms the operational reality of our strategic decision over the past few years to reduce debt and what benefit we're going to yield from it. Because the easiest thing to do, sweat the infrastructure, squeeze OpEx, hand the city something debt-free, but with a lot of infrastructure that needs attention, and we aren't going to do that. I mean, that would be the easy out for a set of commissioners. But I don't think that's what we're going to do.
No, I think I would agree with that. I mean, we've seen what happens when the infrastructure is not taken care of. I think one thing over time that we kind of looked at, as well maintained as our infrastructure is, it ages. When you put as much through the system that we are putting through it, it doesn't matter how new it was, it's going to get worn. And I think that may be a part that, I don't know if we actually started looking at that as an organization and as a whole, saying, we're putting a few more things that we didn't think would break this soon. And so,
for the guy who lives next to lift station number 2, who has a bubbler problem right now, but a beautiful blue tarp out right now as we speak. I have heightened awareness.
Used to live to a lift station that he was our alarm system.
Yeah. Don't wrap me up.
no, I think those are the questions. I mean, these questions really take it in there, and that's something we have to really kind of start looking at, because we did well these last few years in really reducing the debt load, like we told the ratepayers we would.
Yeah.
And that was the right thing to do. And we've been able to hold off on rate increases because of the fact that we've saved money through a lot of reduction. My feeling is we're at a point in time, we have no control of a lot of these outside issues that are coming in, and it's going to cause us to have to look at that. I mean, I think a prime example was the filtration system, or as far as the charcoal system on the new lift station, and how long it took just to get basic parts. Now, we thought at one time you could just call the distributor in Seattle and be there by that afternoon. We waited months.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that, fixing it anytime soon. And if it does, it's expensive. Everything's gone.
Yeah.
We've seen a few bids come in a magnitude of 150% over what engineers' estimates were.
Yeah.
So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just from taste,
yeah.
just to poke a little fun.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question, of course, was, will decreasing debt service offset the personnel and material costs? And then the second one kind of blends right in there in that, where do these two trends meet? I think you can see on the graph, the yellow line that's going up, of course, is that O&M cost. And then that orange line that's going down is our debt, or how much debt are we paying off each year. We have a nice, steady-ish slope, and then you see a drop off there at 2032 when the bulk of what we took on for the plant and everything else is paid off. The slopes of those two lines don't match, right? So O&M is going up faster than we're dropping off for the debt that we're repaying. And the two merged right there at the end of 2021, right before this year. So we were reaping the benefit like we expected to, up until that 2021 timeframe, up until right now. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
So that just says when they're equal, not necessarily when the reduction in debt service is making up for, right? So,
Right.
So if we looked at that as the amount of dollars, and I'm sure you have to, but the amount of dollars, incremental dollars for O&M versus we have a shortfall, and it doesn't start solving itself probably until,
Way out
boy,
there.
yeah, at least 3 years from now, we probably start getting, is that generally kind of the gist of it?
We actually already have a deficit. What we're saving in debt, we're already over spending in O&M
Right,
starting this year.
okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I kind of look at it, that might just be a general snapshot, but what is really coming down the pipeline, I think we're going to feel sooner than later.
Okay,
So this is just graphed a different way. So when the blue bars are above the line, we're saving money. When it's below the line, we're losing money, and by what magnitude. So you see, the bigger the bar, the more of a deficit we have.
yeah,
So yeah, we had deficits in 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So we're kind of even in 24. So, that goes actually
yeah.
more of the slope of those two
Right.
lines,
So we're absorbing a good portion, but not all of it.
but not all of it.
Okay, yeah.
So this is more just the numbers that go into those charts. We have the years. I went back to 2017 just to give you a snapshot of what the beginning of that is. And then the number of ERUs that we're expecting, and the number of ERUs that's coming from our 2021 comp plan that we're going through, the number of buildable land lots that are left. So what we expect if we build out to biggest and best in the city, how many of those we expect to come in. And then the next is, what is that gap? So the difference between how much debt we are paying off versus how much additional O&M costs there are. What does that deficit look like per an ERU per month? And we're looking at well over $4 per customer per month is what we would have to make up to maintain what our
But that would, just to make sure I understand the analysis, so if there was if we had $4 more per month currently in theory, based on this model, we'd be able to cover the O&M related increases all the way to 2033.
Probably not. This model takes each year individually, it's not cumulative. So, 2022 steps at a 415, and then we kind of fluctuate with each year.
Yeah,
Exactly
but
the same.
the 4 is above all of them but 1 year or 2 years.
Yeah.
So, roughly,
In theory,
in
yeah.
theory, right. So, and I get there's, we have a list of caveats on that. That's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. I mean,
But I don't think it'll take into effect that if there was some bigger issue that came up. I mean, that's just trying to hold ground.
oh, we haven't talked about capital.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That's the sweat the assets until they break program.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, exactly, and this is not adding additional staff, it's
Yeah.
not doing much except maintaining.
You're trying to keep a status quo without going underwater,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Okay.
It's having a straw to breathe through.
All right. So this is just another way to look at that ERU, what we expect versus how many new customers may be coming in. And I think graphing it out makes it pretty obvious that it's plateaued. We're running out of billable lots and folks aren't coming in.
Well, because we need so many a year to be able just to pay debt basic. Yeah. That's what we kind of, the whole finance plan with the bonds and everything was based on, okay, you're gonna have this many customers.
And I think when we were planning for the treatment plant, we expected the yield within the UGA to be much higher. We expected a population of 45,000 within the UGA. And really, we're gonna see about 34, 36,000 maybe.
Yeah.
So, the end number for build out changed substantially between 2009 and now.
Well, I think to a certain degree, a lot of cities maybe were just under the misconception of thinking, well, when we work the first 20 years, the next 20 years, we're just gonna double in size and then we can build from there, where that wasn't the case. Where the counties and the state pretty much had to say, well, you're not getting twice as much as you had before. You're gonna have to identify areas that would reasonably be within your growth management areas without having environmental effects that are gonna cause problems. And I think that's where we run into the problem living in the community we have. This topography is just very odd, a lot of environmental issues. Obviously, the city submitted 6 different, I think, or 7 different proposals and got the goose egg currently on actually expanding, which has this ripple effect, because if you're not able to actually develop, we're not going to see the infill that Seattle might see, where 2 houses go down and a 6-story building goes up. I mean, I don't see that around here. And
Well, and if you look at the timeline, when we were kind of building the plan around financing our treatment plant was around a 2008, 2009 number or timeframe. So the county, the city, and us, we were all competing, trying to fit ourselves in a higher priority than maybe we would have been for some of the federal monies that were going around. So we may have overestimated the growth, so that, well, not us, we were working on projections provided by the county and city.
Yeah.
So
Turned out to be optimistic.
it's very
well,
optimistic.
and I think part of it that time was Lake Stevens always kind of strived, but never knew it was going to possibly be there. If you considered an I-5 like an Everett, Marysville, Arlington, in the way that it seems like Snohomish County or whatever, there's those planning groups which are led by King County, have really kind of identified, really what they've said is the Linwood, the terraces.
You're on the strip.
If you're on it, you're there. And Lake Stevens got left out. I mean, we didn't just get left out of any real planning off the I-5 corridor. The Highway 9 corridor is never going to be developed to what we all kind of thought, sorry to say, but you know, like a Highway 99. There's just not going to be any money invested in this area. And that means growth, which some would say that's great, but if you owe $100 million and have to pay debt off, that's not, that can be problematic if you base the model off of it.
Right. All right, so you're used to it.
So your user plateauing.
Yep.
And really that comes in because of our capital funds, right? So in the past, connection fees, 100% of that then goes to capital, and we funded our capital projects really out of connection fees alone. And so there's no portion of the rates that were coming in other than for debt service that we're going to really that capital fund. And I think that's where this next part of the conversation goes, is how do we manage the fact that the connections and the revenue that's going to come from that is dropping off to almost nothing in the very near future. So. Okay, so that brought us to question number 3. With the eventual reduction of new connections, when will rates have to contribute to capital costs? So the blue line here is our capital costs that are in the CIP for the 2021 comp plan. The majority of these capital projects really are for the conveyance system here. There's a few that are for the plant, but really the bulk of them, about 83% are all for the conveyance system. And that's because it's old, it's aging. We have requirements to make sure we're replacing a certain percentage of them each year.
So the answer to the question is yesterday.
The answer is
Some of them
yeah,
were.
yeah, absolutely.
Now,
if not 2 years ago.
okay.
Well, you know, I mean, how many times do
We
we
got
try
rid
to
of that,
reline
they're
the
like
pipe?
sandbagging us.
You know, I mean, how many times did we try to reline a pipe that sagged? And when you got in there actually was no pipe left, you know? I mean,
Right.
so you have to do the major renovation of pulling it out of the ground now. And so, and that's just in areas that we know that I'm a little scared of some of the pipe that goes around the lake itself because it's been in the ground.
You live one.
Yeah,
67 about.
I mean, I'm feeling it at that age. I can imagine what it's feeling.
Well, even on Stitch Road, right, we had the exception that we approved. And my neighbor asked, why the heck are you guys going all the way down parallel to whatever? I said, well, Eric, you brittle pipe, you want, oh, no, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the manhole's probably the most structurally sound bit in that road.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So similar to the chart I showed, where the lines meet, the orange line on this one is our expected GFC revenue. So the connection fees that we're getting. This also assumes that we take the new higher connection fee than we had before. So currently we're sitting at 10,400, and this goes up to 13,500.
Yeah.
Which was what SDS approved exactly first just recently. So even with that, though, we're seeing obviously the orange line is almost always below the blue line, and that does not bode well for us.
Yeah.
Just seen another way, you'll see these bars below almost always are much bigger. That's a gap in our deficit of how much is coming in versus going out.
Well, and that's the big thing. It's, the capital
Big numbers.
is really what we have to take a look at because if we're not going to be able to capture those dollars. I mean, raising it $3,500 or $3,000 for the new GFC charge is one thing, but it's not going to keep us above water.
No, it was already reflected in that bar.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the best we can do following the law. I mean,
No, absolutely. So we've always set it basically round number, but really close to the maximum that we're allowed to by the law.
Yeah.
To capture as much as possible from the connections, then it's not going to make it. And Jonathan and I talked about, in this chart, you kind of have that 2022, 2027 larger accounts. is it possible even to smooth that out a little bit so they're spending not really. I mean, these are larger lift station issues that we have to deal with. And so it's not small projects that are adding up to that. It's really just big projects that need done. So like the 2022, the goal for that is downtown Lakewood. City 1 lift station, City 2 lift station, and replacing that pipe along with it. Those are huge projects for this year.
And I guess, and this gets a little off topic a little bit, and it'll be something we'll probably chat a little bit with our city partners at the utility meeting, because it's something to chat about. We know the end, it's like anything. We know where the end is going to be in 2033. And I guess my feeling would have been, I guess my hope would have been a little bit that the city partners would have also identified this and realized that they bore some of the costs. It's easy to sit there and say it's the sewer district's responsibility because you run the system. But in 12 years, you're going to be part of this and you're going to own it. Why can't, it'd be nice if we could get investment from the front end. And I think that goes back to this last set of federal dollars that came into the county and the cities and everything. And we sent it, when I penned my signature on the letter, just saying, hey, we're investing in the same thing. But the investment only seems to be coming from us. And I think that we should be tackling this more as a joint issue, because they do have dollars that they can contribute to this. I mean, I guess my disappointment sometimes is we've been going through this litigation for the longest time about we want you, we want it. But you're not here to help solve any of our problems as far as the capital expense. I think that, these should be joint. It shouldn't just be it's we when we watch you, but it's you when you gotta fix it. I think that's the disappointment sometimes that comes down. It's like this system eventually in 12 years is going to be merged through this agreement we have, but why are we not getting the kind of help at times? And I think that's the disappointment in a way.
Philosophically, I agree with you. It's not going to change what we have to do, though.
No, absolutely. It's not. But when we roll into the next costs of fixing downtown, and we always said if we took on the system, we would eventually fix that.
Yeah.
But I know the philosophy of this organization, being my second go around, from 12, 13 time, was always, we're not into if we build it, they will come. No, if you come to us and want to put something in there, we'll put the infrastructure or we'll work with you. But the city wants us to upfront. I guess my big concern sometimes is looking at the downtown plan with the business loop, and they want us to go to Harvard and Machias area. It's like, what have you done to ensure? Because we spent over $1 million in 2012, 13, or about that thing, to finish the short piece of pipe between 83rd Southeast and 91st on the build it and it will come. I left the city, I left the district, and now I'm back, and this still hasn't come. So it's an expensive piece of, they want us to take these risks. And I guess sometimes I'm fine if we have a common goal because they have a plan that something's going to happen downtown.
Well, the thing about the part of the poetry in this discussions we have is there is no more reserves, earmarked, easy money from the GSEs. It now comes down to how much do you want ratepayers to bear the brunt of what's there? And it's going to be nearly 100%. And so now we get to do some real trade-offs. It's, do you want it to go to 100? We can cover O&M and we get this. You want it to go 120? You can get this. Or what's the different philosophy? And I'm excited about having those conversations with our city partners when we talk about how to take them through this to where, to the appropriate level of detail without, having too much, so that they can be a party of these trade-offs, because this is exactly what it's going to be. And I think maybe what we end up getting to is, here's an appreciation for the dials that can be turned. Here's 3 scenarios we as an organization have come up with. Scenario 1 is, whatever, you sweat the asset minimum, blah, blah, blah. Number 2 is, whatever, number 3 is, and this is the impact that it has on rates. Which one would you gravitate towards? Which one? Because what I don't want to have happen is have us do whatever we do with rates and then say, well, we need to be in that discussion together because there's ramifications of capital. And then if you ask for something new, we've had the conversation, how dials work.
Yeah.
And so we're together. And then it comes back to what you were saying is, what's the other avenue? What other avenue is, if there's other dollars that can be pulled in, that's great because we know how it affects rates. And we knew the program that we talked about. So I think you're spot on it. And I think this is a great vehicle to really get there and stark contrast on what the trade-offs are.
Yeah, and I think it would help staff to, I guess, if the commission could, emphasize how important it is it's fine, we will support your vision, but your vision and projects can't change year to year. We're looking, and
That's what we see from them though.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
that's
I mean,
really what a lot of the.
It's sometimes seems like the throw it against the wall, see what sticks, and we can try to get that. I mean,
Yeah.
let's try to concentrate on, what we have in hand,
Yeah.
We know that the city has approved a Pasco plan down there. We know our responsibility to put a pipe under the highway because that's what we agreed to way back in the day. I just hate putting pipe in the ground that leads to a dead end in the middle of nowhere because we haven't attracted it.
Yeah.
And part of it, I guess, what I come is I've been with the city and been in the city long enough to see the Hartford area was always planned as this industrial park, and that's great. Well, then it never was able to get any sort of, sewer system. So it's now just more or less converted itself into storage units and storage wells. Well, if we put $2 million worth of pipe in there, they're not going to tear down a storage unit to put an actual business in. It's going to stay that way. And it's a real passive use, The little septic system they probably had to put in there just to be able to flush the one toilet in the office, that's it. So for me, sometimes looking at some of the stuff they've got going is, what is that return on investment? We're using other people's money to do this for something. I just, I have these nightmares of thinking we're building a bridge to nowhere.
Well, the rate, when it all comes down to where I think we're going, it all comes down to we're at a point where the ratepayer is going to bear the vast majority of the costs associated with any infrastructure this way. So do my 80-year-old folks need to finance the stuff in Hartford? Because that's the conversation.
Yes, no, absolutely.
So is Hartford still one of their top priorities?
It is on their list, yes.
How high on the list?
It depends on which week.
Is it baked into the
It's the second hump, essentially. It's the highest.
2024?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's a big thing because we've been talking about that since I was in the city in the early 90s, that something was going to happen, and I left in 2016.
So this,
Yeah, no,
it's begging the question.
it is a good conversation. I mean, not knowing any of the recent studies that have ever gone on in the downtown core, because, I was with the city so long, I saw more models come through than a model manufacturer put together, because every other year they were planning for this or that. It's hard to downtown is a unique place, but it's not Chelan. It doesn't have the attraction. It doesn't have the facilities. It doesn't have the room to do that. So how much are you going to be able to squeeze in there to get a return on your investment?
Yeah.
That's.
Let's do it on Cavallaro. We got a lot of pipe up there. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Trying to hide
No,
that.
that was good though, because I think that's where we're going.
Yeah.
Answer your question, and what does that gap look like
Mhm.
for a customer per month? Right now, 2022, we have a deficit of about $26 per month.
That is a shocking number.
That's a huge number. So,
That we're subsidizing.
No, that we,
No, that's
the
the-
gap.
That's the gap between.
right now, remember, we aren't subsidizing at all. So capital funds had only been paid for out of connection fees. And rates had gone to the M and O and debt fund. And so now we're looking at, because there's such a gap in what we need in our capital improvement plan and what can be funded out of connection fees, that 26-ish is about what we need from.
Can we take that capital list and the timing and, I assume you probably have done this, but have it prioritized and have it, the timing. So here's the priorities based on whatever, right? And they can slide left and right in terms of time frame. But whenever this gets triggered, it's $4 of ratepayer. This one is $7 to the ratepayer. This one is $6. This one is $2. This is. Now it matters a little bit in terms of the timing, right? Because earlier is, but just in the current timing or the current whatever, this is what it means that we would need to do now to make sure we have the money to do that then per dollar per month per ratepayer. So then then we get to the real Hartford factor, right? So it's like, well, Hartford's $15 on grandma and all 14,000 people. Does that pass the sniff test? Is that worth it? Is that worth going to the back for or not?
Yeah, that's a huge question to be asked in that sense. I mean, I don't see, and I think this is where our city partners don't understand that. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean,
No, I want my infrastructure because we have plans and they're, in all fairness, they got a lot of others. We have the benefit of looking at a narrow stripe of infrastructure and doing a good job. Yeah. So we have an advantage in that. They got this big thing and so but we need to be a factor in that with probably a louder voice than we have. And this is a great way to be able to really put it in dollars and cents. And then we have the conversation so that then when we go for the rate increase, we can be very crisp on what it's for. It's $4 to be able to maintain. We haven't done rate increases for months. Here's why. Okay, great. Give us some credit for that. Now going forward, it's a $4 increase to be able to do to be able to take us all the way. That's operating. Now, aging infrastructure, here's the stuff that's already in the ground that needs attention, and here's the cost associated. Here's the stuff that's incremental infrastructure that is desired, and here's the impact on it. Now, what shall we do? That would be one way, and then pick and choose. I think the other angle on it would be for us to say, all right, well, what is palatable? Well, X number of dollars increase is palatable, is we think the least amount of pain to try to, maybe it's $99. And then maybe in 5 years it's whatever. What fits into that envelope off the 10-year plan and say, well, here's the choices. What do we want to pick and choose? That'd be a wonderful conversation to have because it's going to be a hard one.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you really put it down there, I mean, I don't know if you.
Because this is the no way slide. No way.
I mean, I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch the city's retreat recently that they went.
I didn't. I was sleeping while I didn't.
And I go there, there's just parts of it, but the debate over the transportation.
Yeah.
How can you afford any more of this, as far as overlay and things like that? Because they really have not a whole lot into the fund. The debate went back and forth from having the utility district, like some cities will do a $20, $30 charge.
I think Marysville does that.
Yeah, some cities, granted, I think they had 20 at one time or something, but it also went to a 6% tax, looking at the sewer district bill and this and that, because it's paying that stuff. And I know, like you said, they've got a lot of things they have to look at, but at some point you do have to look at what are your expenses? What do you have? What are you doing? I mean, are you bringing things in? And it's easy, I think for us sitting in a spot as an elected, just looking at numbers, no, that's fine. But what is that actual impact to somebody? And sometimes electeds get too comfortable in spending other people's money without batting an eye.
Yeah.
And I think this is a slide where we really have to talk to the city partners, like you guys saying, and say, hey, this is where we're at. I mean, there's only a finite amount of money we can absorb in the system without sending a complete shock to everybody
Yeah.
to be able to get, because we've done quite well, but it's these unplanned or suddenly we need to move this up in the comprehensive plan when we had it planned up 8 years from now or 10 years from now. It becomes priority one. It's like, that's like taking a kid to the store. No, you can't have every candy bar you grab off the shelf.
So this is, again, 83% conveyance, not plant.
Correct.
Just to calibrate, it's everything that's in the 10-year capital plan currently that has been scrubbed, but it's everything that's in there. And this is the incremental dollars. So I guess average every 5 years mid. So
So what that does is just even out, so you don't have such big jumps from year to year.
okay,
So, it's
All right.
taking the last couple of years, whether it was a deficit or a surplus.
so you're doing kind of a trailing average thing to smooth it out a little bit. Okay. But that tells us what we would need to have in, and I guess you can discount the flows back and say, what would it have to be at day one? To just completely smooth it out. But you just kind of eyeball that thing, it looks like there's a $33-ish, I'm just doing the average in my head. You blend that and say, yeah, it's gonna be $33 pretty much every year to get the current list of capital done. Okay, that's a big number. Okay,
It's a big number, but it's also a big number without taking out to recover it or to spread it out over a longer period of time.
oh, yeah, so, or probably it's, okay, probably should let you get through your rest of your. Yes.
I was gonna mention on your comments about moving projects around, there is, Andrew, for your benefit, in the agreement that we have with the city, in order to move those projects, we do need to get their consensus.
Yeah.
And certainly they do ask us to do that and have in the past, Southwest Interceptor, the Costco project, anyways, move projects around for that benefit. There's also, because we can look at the 10-year window of what projects are in the CIP, that builds into how much we can charge for the connection fee. So if we are taking projects out and delaying
That's right.
them more than 10 years, how much we get to bring in is less. So it is a balance between what's in 10 years and what's not.
So the two actions on this one that if we could do would be the one of what per rate does it cost for a capital project? So one can have the menu to pick and choose from to the extent that that can be, and it won't be perfect, but it'll be directionally accurate. Another thing would be on, on those increases per year, can we discount them back to a net present value that says, here's the increase that would need to be done in 19 to get, to get all the capital projects in. So you just have that one number, because I think that would, because I think you go to this slide, it's like, oh my gosh, that's too much. Okay, here's the capital, here's how the capital project list makes up that number, and so you kind of roughly net those so that if it's $34, well, Hartford is $17.50, whatever. And here you go. So now you can have that conversation of how important is it? And since we have most of our build out and ERUs are like, even if it has to be 12,000 instead of 13.8 or whatever we're thinking about, it's not going to change the exercise or it's still going to vast majority come out of rates. So we'll need to go back and back calculate that, but that doesn't cause me any trepidation that we can't get quite as much because the ERUs are flattening out anyway. It's not going to make that much difference. It's still a rate discussion. Okay.
Yeah, and I think, one thing that might be good too is, well, when we get there is overall project costs of how much debt, if you were just to take it on to fix everything they want on this magic list of their comprehensive plan.
I think our draft CIP shows 2 debt issuances, one for 15 million and one for 20 million. So I don't think it's captured in here, we haven't done it since that was
No.
one of our guiding principles. But
I mean, there was always a talk at one time between that $25 million plant upgraded by, the 2025 era, if it ever, population targets that never were going to materialize, but if the plant had to go to the next stage. The reality is, if it's not necessarily the plant that's going to the next stage because we're not going to meet the targets, it's fixing their infrastructure needs. What is the city's ability then to take a look at, because really this is going to be some of their infrastructure. How, they've never been real easy or cooperative in refinancing debt beyond the 2033 because that was previously the way they felt about it. But they're going to have to start looking at it because I think just for us to say, we're not going to be able to finance every little win.
No, it's an easy conversation. You just need to back up on the huge rate increase, or you need to change the capital plan, or it comes out of debt. There's no other dial. It's not, that's the math. It's not there's nothing emotional about it. It's just how it is. And where do you want to take the pain? You want to bleed debt out? That wouldn't be my first choice,
Right.
but so be it. My first choice would be we tighten the capital down, making sure we give priority to maintaining existing infrastructure and replacing pipe. And we take a 2-stage rate, with that, constrained view, and there it is. But, that still might be a bridge too far on rates. I don't know.
All right, so this is kind of the last numbers slide of what would rates have to be to prevent having to take out more debt. The gray boxes are years we've already passed, yellow is in the future. And all this it's really simplified it. So all of the N and O plus the debt efficiency, what that's gonna look like. And then what is the required to cover for the capital that's not gonna be covered by connection fees. And so we get to somewhere around $112 per ERU per month.
But that doesn't include the 4 incremental dollars we need to cover O&M increase.
That does include.
That does include it. So 112 is the magic number.
112 is about the magic number. It's about a 30% increase, and that's fairly sustainable for the remainder through 2033.
So let me see if I got this. So if tomorrow we raise rates to $112 and took the hit for that, it would get the 10-year capital plan done, to give us the increase we need for the O&M and then have debt, help us, the debt reduction, all in. Okay, that's our bet. Okay.
That's our best model right now. We think it would get it.
I guess more better than other slide looked.
More better.
Well, we also have some reserves that weren't,
There's a little bit of
that helps reduce that. And that's still maintaining to operate the capital reserve and a consistent with the OpEx reserve that we.
So we have a 3-month OpEx, and then CapEx is 1.5 million.
30%. So now, what's interesting about that number, 30%, is if you back, so we have a roughly 10 years, right? Okay, so if we back that 30% number, we're taking it all at the beginning, which is an advantage. If we ignore that for a second, that's a big ignore, but we ignore that for a second to say, over the next 10 years, rates are going to go up 30%. What's the compounded annual growth rate of that increase to get to 30 at the end? And again, we're taking it at the beginning, so it's different, but it's got to be somewhere, it's somewhere less than the school district over the last 10 years. I guarantee, because that number is 3.9% per year, okay, which is a lot. If you take inflation, CPI from, and again, you're going out in the future, so you don't know, but from 2015 to estimated 2025, it's 2.7-ish a year. And 2.7 across the state would be more than 30%. So it sounds like a ton, but if you start backing into that number from what other,
Oh, yeah, if you divided it, I mean, just over a 10-year period, 30%, yeah, you're seeing it. What the customers want to know, is that hard and fast?
oh yeah,
Because, you know, I mean, the problem is with, and I'll include electeds, is we'll tell you what you want to hear up front, and it seems like you get something at the end. Now, we try to be true to our word, but how many times were you told, well, you know, it's a latte a month, you know, more and this and
no,
that.
I
But-
just don't use that. I just, that gives me a,
Heartburn? Makes that cold brew come up? But I mean, that's the problem is people don't see it ever end.
no, I agree with you.
And it's hard, because I mean, we're $86 right now, and then, you know, 112 to
I
some
get
people.
more value out of that $86 in my household than any other fee I pay. I guarantee it.
But I mean,
I hear you.
it's huge. I mean, I would love to say, hey, we can guarantee your rates for 10 years at $112. Some people might say, great. In this day and age, people don't trust.
And we're gonna get cards and letters, whether it goes to 90. I guarantee, right, whether it goes, so, and I don't mean that to sound flippant, but, yeah. I hear you.
No, I mean, I see, I
And
mean,
we have a little credibility. How many bills
oh,
are
absolutely.
the same for 5 years?
Yeah,
Out of anybody's household, what, you know,
absolutely.
I think the problem is people don't care because they don't know.
Right.
They literally don't know that it's been the same for 5 years
right,
and that no matter when it goes up, they're gonna be angry,
Yes,
you know?
yep,
Because they passed through the levy for the school.
oh,
But
yeah.
they literally have no idea how much more they're actually paying.
right.
If they read Facebook, I was out there trying to help.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm a
I'm just
huge
teasing.
school proponent,
Yeah,
but
so am I.
because our property values are going up
Astronomically high,
so much,
absolutely.
it is a greater cost for families. And so that number, that freaks me out.
Big number.
It's
And I know the city wants to do the sewer tax, so what then is it really? Even if it's a $4 per month, I know they're gonna double it. And the citizens, they don't care if it's, you know, like, they don't see the difference between the tax and the rate increase. They just
It's
like,
just, they changed their automatic bill payment and what's
Right.
a lot,
yeah,
is what they see.
so that's my,
No, it's always a concern that way. I mean, what I don't, you know, I like the number to be true in pricing. You know, at times, how many times you get, you know, you get your latest renewal with a cable company or a phone service, and it's like, yeah, it's $50 a month, but then it shows up and there's $35 worth of taxes on it. You know, like, what in the world, you know, and I mean,
That's why
that's,
you're a T-Mobile subscriber.
oh, I am, I mean, trust me.
I know it.
I mean, I lived with AT&T for 20-something years, and I felt like I was being extorted every month, you know, I mean, one phone number with AT&T could give me 7 phones with T-Mobile, you know, so I find to a certain extent, we're pretty a flat rate, you know, I mean, we haven't consistent. My concern is these taxes that get added on, and I wish it was a little more transparent and we had a more reasonable relationship, it seems like times with the city, because we can't get a straight answer sometimes out of them, whether they're gonna do it, the increase or not.
I guarantee, well, I won't, I would highly suspect when we raise rates, that's when it'll get tacked out.
I agree.
It's a lot, in fact, it's a logical time to do it.
It's a plan.
Yeah, it's a logical time to do it, because even when Mayor Spencer was there, it was all, you know, you guys are gonna raise, yeah. But I think you should. I mean, we literally, that was the message, and because I think that, you know, they were going to.
Well, it's right in our coattails, because the hate mail ain't going to them.
So the utility, if there is a utility tax, it can't be,
They can spend on whatever they want.
right, it can't be used towards their capital towards their projects.
Well, could
Like,
be.
I mean, like, I'm saying like,
It can be used to build a civic center.
right,
The thing is if they were to charge, what would be a reasonable thing that I think that I could support from the city if they said, we're gonna put 6% utility tax on top of your bill because we're gonna help pay for the capital
Right.
infrastructure that's gonna go in the ground.
right.
That's just not gonna happen. The city has too many other the talk the other night was about funding transportation overlays and fixes and this and that. And that has nothing to do. If they charge 6% on top of what we're doing, they're taking the money to be able to utilize it in their own, their projects. That $30 million civic center thing they want, that's gonna have to be bonded some other which way that they're gonna come out and try to probably sell something. Just because I don't think that the city has enough left in bonding capacity, because it's borrowed for every other project it has going, that it could just do it in a councilmatic way. It would have to go to the voters to be able to say, yeah, I'm fine with taxing myself $30 million to pay for a specific,
So it's important to raise the rate before that.
Well, and the city's
Right.
gonna, yeah.
Well, the city's gonna jump on either which way. We have a utility meeting with them this coming week. And this is the opportunity for us to start talking about some of the stuff. As we know, it's strategic with them because we didn't do it for the last couple of years. And as Commissioner Kochi was saying, the former mayor was seething to want it to happen because they did need to look at the utility tax. And that was the constant talk, even though it was denied. And half the literature that was put out by the city had it caveated in
Right.
there, but they were never like, oh, let's just, well, why would you put it there? It was never gonna go.
Just spitballing.
Yes, yeah, so, I'm fine when riding my coattails, as long as you're using it for a project that benefits the public in the context of sewer to sewer, if that 6% utility tax to pay your part to be able to put the infrastructure in the ground because you want us to spend $15 million or whatever on something, that should go towards it, not, hey, a squirrel ran across the street, we need to build a bridge for him.
I'm
I
wondering,
mean.
and I think whatever direction we should have on our bill, I mean, it's just 86 on it, and I'm not saying that everybody reads it, for sure, but I think we start breaking it out, this is operations, this is replacing capital that, capital that is already in the ground, this is for incremental build capital, to expand, to do so you can very clear, okay, well, $15 of my bill is going to infrastructure outside of the current system to expand the system. And then there's utility tax, City of Lake Stevens utility tax.
Questions, contact.
So at least, so it's, like PUD does, I mean.
Well, PUD, they do it.
Here's the cost to get it to your house, this is the.
County treasurer even breaks it down to kind of show, I think,
They've done a lot better over the years.
yes, we have a society that wants to know where every dollar's going.
Right.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
You just can't say, well, that's a little too complicated for you. No, it's not,
And Bill, and we can do that, Bill, right? I mean, we got outsourced provider that.
We have part of that in your newsletter from the fall, right? With that pie chart of how your rate is used. So it's not quite as specific as what you're saying, but it's still a very good visual. I
And it's
think.
not gonna change. It's not like they gotta do some calculation based on real-time data. We're gonna tell them what it is and then put it on the bill until we tell them to put it on the bill differently,
And we can certainly put it on the website, that pie chart idea.
Yeah.
Here's where your rate went to, just be a shot in time.
Yeah.
Not to each month, but-
Yeah. Does that conclude the slide presentation for tonight?
Almost.
Well, wait, there's more.
I can give you a couple pages. One of them is Lake Stevens Sewer District rate history. So you can see all of the increases that we've had over time. So when we're talking, maybe 30%, that wouldn't be the only time we've done 30% in the past. And just
We were
breaking it
still in
down.
high school, Kevin, in one of those.
Well, look at that.
So that just gives you, a little bit of history. The last kind of guiding principle that we had talked about earlier slide was considering updating policy for lower fixed income customers. So what I gave you is a copy of resolutions 820 and 821, which is way back in 2009 where we set up those programs. So for us, we have resolution 820 really is our caring by sharing program, and that's you'll see it on the bill. People can donate to it, and then our customers will go to caring by sharing administer, and ask for funds, and that's what that one is. 821 is really us evaluating their financial need, and then we would allow them a 10% discount on monthly sewer charges. When we're talking 10% on an 86, so their bill is still at 77.40 million, a handful of customers that are on that. Michelle's done just a little bit of research, so this isn't all inclusive of everyone around us, but it certainly gives you an idea that that 10% is very low for what.
Some of our neighbors are doing.
Yeah, some of our neighbors, like, let's say, City of Marysville, 30% is their discounted rate. North Shore, 45.
So we should be able to eat, with all of that number, we'll just keep it the same, or we certainly can keep it the same, as really no financial impact, material impact.
Exactly. I'm saying that the 10% could definitely be increased so that our low income or fixed income customers really aren't seeing quite the rate increase.
Mhm.
That we're looking at.
Well, yeah, I mean, really looking at our immediate neighbors, meaning we touch, Marysville would be one, even though we don't touch the Homish, it's really, it's as close as Everett. I mean, Everett's only a 2-mile jaunt across the bridge. But I mean, yeah, I think there could be something. It may not affect. They may not see the effects to it. I mean, they will go up, but it won't be, especially if it was adopted at 30%, I mean.
But whenever we consider maybe a rate increase, I'd love to have us look at this resolution at the same time.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Just to ensure we're protecting that part of it. And I like the idea of making that percentage match what they're paying right now, so that they're not being cut. But I'm open to ideas, whatever you want to do.
33% increase, or 38 and 33, like 75 was 38. 81 was the height of some good recession times.
Well, you even see in 2008, we raised it twice. We did an 11 and then a 20, so it's really in the same year. All right, and then that concludes that. Like I said, I'd love to hear what you guys would like to see us come back with, whether you want a couple alternatives and the actual, the forecast, what does it do? Any of those things. Or if you're ready to tell me to come back with a resolution or whatnot.
Well, I mean, I think that we need to at least go through this exercise with our utility. Because we're required to be able to give them, the ILA to say, hey, we're thinking of this input. I mean, I don't know if they'll have the same shock and awe in the sense that we're going to have an increase because they've been wanting it for years. But it might be something at that, whatever percentage. I think we have to lay it out to them to kind of take a look. I think your idea of like saying, hey, what's got to roll into this is not due just because it's time. This is because you've got a lot of infrastructure needs that you've moved up or you wanted us to move up, and we want to be a good partner. But for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, and it's going to cost somebody something.
What's the, so 86 or 80-some% of the capital is for conveyance, getting stuff to the.
83%.
83% to get stuff to the plant, okay. Of that 83%, since that's a big number, what portion of the 83% is related to existing infrastructure in the ground? you know, which ratepayers should pay for, you
Mhm.
know, it's in the ground,
It's
it's
already
today,
there.
right?
So,
That
yeah.
piece of it versus we're expanding out and it's,
Or increasing capacity.
we're increasing, yeah, we're increasing
We're increasing
our,
it
our-
due to-
increasing our reach, I
Yeah.
guess. That would be something that would be good, because it's, the first portion should be baked into the rates, in my view. Because if it's an existing system,
Yeah, you always have to have some
Right.
repair, you know, I mean, that has to be done all
Right.
the time.
the
Yes.
maintenance, the O&M needs to be baked in rates, that's the
Yes.
easy one.
Yeah.
The infrastructure, the capital costs that's maintaining the existing system should be baked into the rates. That next portion is the list. You know, that next list of, here's the stuff that's extending the reach, what is it? If we're gonna do it all in one chunk, because that just drives the conversation, not saying we would, but just, what is the dollar per month increase for those per projects? And now we come full loop to your conversation about, you know exactly what the trade-off is. And so, and that would be I would see that being a way to have the conversation with the city, say, okay, and this is what's required of O&M, this is what's required to maintain, this is the optional, you know, set of projects and what their impact is on rates in today's dollars, we're gonna do it. Have an opinion? Because you back the conversation into, you're supporting the rate structure. Or do you see a different way of doing it? You disagree with the numbers, do you disagree with, you know, the methodology? What, and if so, let's dive into that.
Yeah, because I mean, the reality is we've always had the general operating philosophy here is that development pays for development. And, you know, with the connections and everything else, you know, we have our maintenance on what we need on the conveyance system and also, you know, everywhere else. But it's becoming lopsided because we want this, we need to do that, and it's becoming one of those things is, I don't think it's sustainable without a large increase.
Well, and then the bill can reflect it. O&M. Maintaining existing capital infrastructure. This is what you're paying for to extend to new homes. Or whatever it is, or, you know, extend the system.
Well, and I know that there's a lot of, you know, I mean, we all enjoy the fact that we have a vibrant community, that there's a lot of things to do and there's new homes coming in, but there's also the resentment. People don't want, all the new people are driving up these costs at times. And, you know, that's the balance we have to be able to take a look at is like, how do we keep both sides, you know, I mean, you want to welcome new people into the community, but it shouldn't be at the expense of those that are living there that they're seeing. I mean, unfortunately, it becomes that way because look at our roads, you know, what used to take 5 minutes to get to Everett at 7 o'clock in the morning, takes you 5 minutes to get on the driveway to get to them, you know, and it's another 20 minutes.
That's why I don't think it's not a trestle problem. It's an egress and egress from the trestle problem.
Oh, it
You
just,
get on the deck,
you're going.
you're fine, as long as no one, you know, has a bad day.
Yeah, no, and I think that's just it, we just have to be able to tackle that and hopefully, I mean, I get the sense sometimes that it's been that way, that it's your problem, you know, from the city's perspective to us, it's your problem to figure it out, you're the sewer district, well, it's our problem, we all own it.
Yeah, well, we
want-
figured it out, it's $112.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
And 8 of that is related to extending the reach of infrastructure. Are you comfortable explaining that? Because we have the same constituents. If not, okay, let's have a dialogue about it.
Yeah.
Do you want to defray it with some, you know, or not? Do you,
Mhm. Yeah.
where are you at? So I think it's a great vehicle. I mean, I don't like the idea of raising rent, but it's a great vehicle to have that.
Oh, absolutely.
That real conversation, and this is the type of conversation that should happen in a utility. If this is a real, honest to goodness, this is the right kind of thing to be talking about. So, I'm excited.
Because there was a lot of tears for Mariah and I doing.
Oh, cheers.
All the tears were you.
I was trying to get her to give me a little sympathy.
So we have utility meeting Tuesday. You want us ready to go with that? Here's all the projects and here's the percentage.
I'm sensitive to, I assume you probably slice this 18 ways to Sunday, but if that's a heavy lift, and it, again, this is better than ballpark accuracy, but not a forensic accuracy.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we can, I don't want to go into all of this detail.
No,
but
no.
You can watch the video, but we can certainly give the big picture highlights. and
Yeah, I think
what
it's guiding principle. I think that's important to anchor, anchor people on. I think it's that. And it's the O&M, however you capture O&M, $4, that's what it is. And here's the debt thing, the strategy worked well, but it's not enough. That's a takeaway. And then it's our capital falls in a couple buckets, existing infrastructure or not. And existing infrastructure has got to be borne by the ratepayer. And the not is things that we have an opportunity on. This is the impact. And we want to do it all. We want to do it today. $112. Where you at?
And every time the vision changes, it's going to be another tick up.
Right. And now we've closed loop. Let's trot that back out. Okay, you remember, just to refresh it, right? Now, do we want grandma paying for that?
Well, and I think what's important in that conversation with them is going to be, this isn't going to just fall on our shoulders. We're going to share in the misery with people coming in here with pitchforks in a way, because I think that, again, it's easy for somebody else to make a decision with somebody else's money. And sometimes I don't want to stereotype elected bodies that way, but it seems to be, and I've seen it in city government, because that's where I came from a lot of the time in city government. It's easy just to do that and not really think about the ramifications that come down. What I want our city partners to understand, there's ramifications. And we're going to make sure when people do come around talking about it, because our responsibility in the sewer district is to just be able to treat what is put into the system and discharged into the slough. We have no land use authority to say we're going to build a Costco or we're going to put 500 homes there. That is your onus. And while we're a partner, you need to accept some of that, because having them come to us like, oh, the three board, because I've heard some of their elected sit there and say that irresponsible board of commissioners, like it's an us and them, and it's not. It's like, we own this and we've got to be able to go out there. I'll defend them if they defend us in decisions we make to better the community. But it doesn't seem to work that way sometimes. It's kind of like, I've sat in those meetings and listened to them talk to the public and infer that the Board of Commissioners have some sort of land use authority because they're not willing to take the heat from the crowd that wants to just come uncorked. And it's like, no, you made the decision to put X, Y, and Z down there. We're just there to make sure that you're not putting it into the wetland. We're trying to protect the environment, and it comes at a cost. And so that's what I want them to be more in line. We should be standing with each other. We'll stand up there and take the heat with them if we decide to do that. But it is a decision that is a partner that's made. It's not like the city did this or the district did that, like scooting away. That's, I'll stand with any of those council members if they accept the fact that this is what we have to do to make sure our community. But I don't want it to, no, you're fine.
So it'll be spelled out.
Absolutely.
So this is great. This is well prepped, by the way.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just whoever diddled the bits on the nice smooth Excel charts. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a scientist in the background. She loves a random plot now.
No, I think it's a great conversation to have, and we can go from there, because I think that's going to be, it's, you know, but it's telling, $112, it's, woo, that's a,
And that is to avoid. So,
somebody's battery's going dead.
Yeah,
That's
it's all right. It's my computer.
Yeah.
Give me out of working the rest of
I
it. I mean,
You're the one recording, so you're gonna have to plug it in.
yeah, I guess that's important.
We would exceed Seattle Skyway for a monthly bill and no one, that is so terrible.
And does,
Oh, absolutely.
I could stand there and say, the Seattle isn't in a crater that has to pump everything
I know,
up and
but
out and blah, blah, blah.
people don't think, I'm just thinking of it as
No,
as the layperson.
The optics are bad.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, the optics are bad.
We also have the economy at scale. More people to spread out these projects.
Right.
Yeah.
But they, I
Highly
would
dense.
say like the uneducated ratepayer would look at Granite Falls
Oh,
as the
absolutely.
comparison.
Marysville.
Snohomish is higher, but,
Yeah.
right, that's where they really look.
Snohomish still's gotta do something with their plant. Even
Well,
before
they've been in
this happened.
violation of the discharge requirements for a long time, and so some places just decide it's cheaper to pay the fine to come into compliance, I mean.
When it's $100 million project.
For us, that's guiding principle number one.
No, you're right. Yeah, exactly.
We're not gonna pay the fine.
Right,
Right.
that's right.
Did it stop the recording?
I'm feeling like I'm having a great section.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good thing to at least bring back to the utility committee and see where we're gonna get some traction on there, because obviously we want to include them in it, and they gotta understand, because in the years to come, one day, this is going to be theirs, and
Is there a couple dollar numbers that we want to give to FPS group for them to really plug into the model? To double check for us, you know? like-
What if we had them pull out everything that's optional?
Okay.
Because at least that gives the low water mark, right? So we know what the high water mark is for the 10-year.
Mhm.
It's 13,800, whatever it was, 34, whatever. And pull out everything that's optional. What does that look like? Is it above the 10.5,
Mhm.
right? And then we just know in between, you know. Unless, I mean,
I think that's great.
because then you bookend it. And-
Right.
And again, we're more talking about big ideas with handles on them at this point, and we'll get down to the precision later.
So I think their original model they presented had every 2 years a rate increase going out. So maybe
now
a
how's
little
that-
bit more now.
How's that affecting the model? The rate increase?
It had us taking out debt twice. They did have a little bit of rate revenue going into capital, but it wasn't a substantial portion.
what was the cost if they took the debt, if you took on more debt to service that debt for a 20-year note, or, you know?
The heartburn I have with debt on underlying infrastructure, replacing pipes on it, is that doesn't go away.
No,
You
absolutely
know what I
not.
mean? So it's like, to me, it's an inappropriate use of debt. If we're gonna use debt to go build something new.
Right.
Yeah, right, it makes sense to me, but if we gotta replace $1 million of pipe or $2 million of pipe every year, if the pipe's bad, we're gonna need to do it for 20 years, taking debt to do that,
I know, it's
you just dig
ludicrous.
yourself a hole.
But when I look at it, I guess, you know, just prospectively, it seems to be the model, unfortunately, for most cities. One, the tax structure in the state of Washington for cities when it comes to collecting and this and that is not really keeping up, you know, with the way, well, it could keep up if you watched your expenditures, but if you don't watch your expenditures and you're just spending like there's no tomorrow. But it would be interesting to see what that debt model would look like. You know, what was the city's recent, they obviously had to take on debt to be able to do the Costco project, the roundabout there at 9
It was
and,
9 million or something.
and actually when I saw what was awarded, it was only like $6 million for that roundabout there. Because remember it was gonna be like 8 point something and then it came in and I looked on the website. Now, that's what the DOT awarded to the company. Is there other fees that maybe they didn't break down that the city's paying on that? But it'd be interesting just to see, okay, well, what is $15 million worth of debt gonna cost you at this current rate if you did it? Just, it might be, because unfortunately, well, in the past, in the years that I worked with the city, they were relatively debt free. We just didn't take on debt. I think the first debt that I can ever remember that was serious was when we built the first PD downtown, off of Great Road there. Now they spend money, on more debt, but what does it cost to service that? Because I think sometimes from the city standpoint, and I don't want to stereotype all cities, but they just look at it as what's it going to be. It's like walking to a car dealership. You want the $500,000 car. What is the monthly payment? You're just trying to squeeze it in there. I think that's what they're looking at.
So it just shotgun math there. 10 million in debt, 3% interest, $300,000 of debt service a year, $25,000 a month, roughly $1.80 per ratepayer per 10,000. 10 million. Rough.
Even if you said to it, because see that to them sometimes more palatable because they don't look at the long term. A lot of places don't look at the long term debt. You take a 20-year note in debt, I'm gonna elect it. I'm only gonna be here 5 or 6 or 7 years. Not my problem. I mean, that's a sad commentary, but that's reality.
Yeah.
We, as a society, have kicked this can down the road so far. There's no can left. We're just kicking dust. But I think it's an option to be able to let the city know. Because here, I find you want to take out $15 million debt under the city of Lake Stevens' name, I support you, but you're going to pay it. Why should it come to our rate? But at least they should have that option to look at it because it's their infrastructure needs that they're going to pay to increase. And do they want it on the backs of the ratepayers right now? For something that these ratepayers shouldn't necessarily be paying because there's a lot of things in that debt that they want us to take on that has nothing to do with the current ratepayers other than it'll eventually end up down on Sunnyside Boulevard.
Yeah.
So
I think we can have the conversation.
Yeah.
We can say, yeah, if you want to defray 10 million, it's, we did it today and it's.
Well, and I think that 2026 population peak or growth peak is the same issue that the city's gonna have too. So I think it's going to be a challenge for either entity to pay for any growth related project.
Mm-hmm.
So it's yeah, it doesn't look good for them either. That's where a lot of their one-time monies come through with impact mitigation fees, things like that. So
Yeah.
There is no potential of expanding. I heard that it was not approved beyond north of 92. Is that correct?
As far as I know, pretty much all the UGA expansion petitions they're being looked at, but I don't think seriously.
Okay.
it went to the county, I think the exec's office or something first to do review, to be able to see if it's gonna get. There's not support right now. There might be support on the council if it came there, but not a majority. So if you don't necessarily have that support from the exec's office, you're probably not gonna get it at the county council.
Okay.
And that's part of it. Whatever the, I haven't really.
North of 92 is the wrong freaking direction for sewer services because it's way the heck out there. I mean, that would just tell me what. I don't have the whole map memorized, but I know that's the wrong direction.
I think their big thing was trying to take a lot of the property that just is pretty much right along 92.
Yeah.
They've given up to the south end where it used to be the fight was between Snohomish and Lake Stevens for pretty much South Lakes, the current city limit is 2,700 block to US 2 because Snohomish had an interest, Lake Stevens had an interest, You got school districts in there because there's two different ones depending on which corner of the road you're on, because, you know, a lot of those people identify Snohomish school districts and this and that. And it wouldn't change for them, but they would be in the city of Lake Stevens, but sometimes, you know, that's a.
They'd have to pump that stuff 4 or 5 times.
North of 92s were best suited for that.
All right.
Yeah, it's until you get around Lake Cassidy, it kind of plateaus up there.
Okay.
There's a lot of wetlands to contend with, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of density in those lots.
Okay.
But as far as topography, it would all basically go to lift station 15
Okay.
and then over the hill.
Okay.
South of our current UGA boundary is going to be the most expensive. It would have to pump uphill through 7 or 8 different lift stations
Okay.
and big lift stations to get it to the plant.
Okay.
But economically, that's the better economic or commercial area. So,
Yeah, we kind of looked at South, when I was on the board in 12-13, it was the time that Snohomish was kind of having some thoughts of either piping to Everett. And so we thought as the district, well, we'd throw a proposal to take a look at the, you know, which way going on 83rd in the backside coming out, you know. Because if you could get it to go down along 2, our plant's closer, but you know, I mean, it's still an expense. I mean, it all seems to bowl right down into South Lake Stevens Road area because, you know,
Yeah.
it's a natural drainage basin going out that way, but it still would be expensive. You still gotta put some stations in, and so, you know. The last one we did any indication that $6 million a pop and you have to have 8 of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No way.
well, and not only are they expensive, but then they're heavy in OpEx. It's not like you put them in and forget about them for 50 years.
Yeah.
Those things, I mean, they're complicated.
Yeah. Well, and a pump, I mean, like lift station 22, we've got 100 horsepower motors there. That'll be $30,000 just for the motor. The whole pump assembly is about 125,000.
This is
So
not for the faint of heart.
no, it's yeah,
It's not
actively
like-
trying to reduce how many of them we need
Right.
to build out. But
And so stop flushing the wipes, people.
yeah.
All right. We done?
Okay.
You done?
I thought it'll be a nice conversation, but we know it's coming forward because we've got to look at something, because I think some of this model is looking at
This is great.
having to be able to,
I'll be remote, but still be great. You happy?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
any thoughts, I mean, it's obviously.
I thought $4 was a huge increase. I had heard rumors.
I walked in the room thinking.
I totally
$4
did not
increase,
run thinking that, because people are gonna hate me.
And I'm walking out thinking,
You know?
why is that
kind of
my
a
name
strong
in this?
word.
No, hate. I don't know how the levy passed. I know so many people, they have no idea what's coming down the pipe.
No, I know.
But because of the city, so I only read it via Facebook, I'm so sorry, but of the city's meeting and what they're planning to tax, I feel like the normal person's just about to,
Well, you're
Thank
you're at a point that they're gonna feel very saturated and nickel and dime with.
Right.
So,
When a $5 box of crackers costs $8 now too.
right,
Yeah.
it's the gas, it's everything.
Well, it's
you
expensive.
know?
I mean, you see it. I mean, I eat crummy. I'll say that right now, obviously. And I like to buy my little cup of noodles at Safeway times, even though they're not the most cheapest place. But I used to pay $6 for a 12-pack of a couple of, it's $8 now. And I'm thinking,
How you eat, it's amazing you're as healthy as you are.
I'm preserved. One day you'll never have to involve me. I mean, I'm pre-involved with, but you know, but you're right. It's an expensive endeavor, and listening to some of the stuff that's going on, I don't think the average person really has an idea what, you know, we all
No,
want
they
to.
have no idea. Because anyway,
Yeah.
but I think this is excellent. I mean, like, it's all laid out there and, you know, I'd like to see what the city's projects, that what this list is?
Yeah.
I only know a few just because I am concerned, but like, I have no idea really what the list is.
Well, we can get you a list, because we kind of share a developer extension agreement list that kind of goes around, so
Mhm.
that kind of says things are in the work.
Yeah,
Some of the issues is we don't know all the details behind it, you know, I mean, even though we are the provider of the sanitary system, we're only kind of brought in to the point where, yeah, we're proposing 30 or 40 spots or something. Because again,
Right.
we don't have land use authority, we're not really
Right.
considered. I
We
think
say,
so,
yes, we have capacity
Yeah.
for this
Right.
development.
right.
but it's having that effect, and I think that's just part of trying to.
So you're talking like, what are their priorities, capital list?
Yeah,
It's harder to narrow.
it is. Okay.
And I can shoot you over our draft capital improvement plan. It hasn't gone through the board to get approved yet. but,
Okay.
We can shoot you the draft chapters and everything.
Okay.
And it's good to have a conversation like this, because really, I mean, what it's gonna do at times, from the city's perspective too, is they're gonna have to, you know, we all have to have buy-in to be able to do
Right.
this. You know, we have to have, between the majority of the board has to be able to be on the same sheet of music to move forward.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, we're supposed to be partners in this, and unfortunately, sometimes we don't feel that partnership. We're kind of placed out as a second class, it feels like. We're not necessarily brought in, and that's inherently in the previous ones, that's what happened. We weren't invited to some of the meetings that really we should have probably had representation. Now, I'm not saying us, but our staff, you know.
Mhm.
Now, we've improved some of those things, and I think that it's moving in a more positive direction, but,
I have one other ask. So the 112 numbers, we got that. What could we do if we split the increase?
Just $6.
Well, whatever it needs, split it in half, but the next step will have to be greater than 12 because you aren't getting the increase early enough, right? So if we don't decide not to do 112, I fully understand, then if we split that increase, if the list didn't change, we split that increase, what would it need to be now? And then how much more over 112 would it have to get to at year 4 or 5, whatever the midpoint is? That'd be good numbers. And then when we do the list of the other projects that aren't related to existing infrastructure, we'd have here's the dollar amount, you know, at the beginning, here's the dollar amount that would have to also be contributed then or something, I don't know.
How many rate increases or how many iterations of increase you want?
I would just do 2.
2?
Because it's kind of, and the only reason I was gonna say that, I mean, we might want to slice it differently, I don't know. Just because we've gone 5 years without,
Mhm.
boom, we're gonna go 5 years, boom, it's, you know, it's now the city's game, roughly. And so it kind of has a little symmetry to it, to the story. And hopefully it provides some predictability, whether they believe us or not. They can at least judge us at 5 year, you know, whether what we told them is consistent or not, and not wait for a decade when everybody forgets.
you know,
Not that they will forget at 5. And then I think that'll be great.
well, I think it'll be a fun meeting. I don't know if there's any,
Yeah, no, thank you.
it gives us kind of an idea, and we'll know after the next utility meeting how we kind of want to
Yeah.
start moving
Good
forward.
workshop.
We'll get the flavor,
I'd
so
make a motion, Major.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.